Okay, they look like the kind of love child of Lady Penelope's car from Thunderbirds and the Batmobile. So they are long pink or long blue. They had some of these deep pastel colours with a very long bonnet, which you don't need for an electric car because there's no real engine in there, and a kind of swept back thing like a kind of Bentley Continental GT. So a kind of GT type shape, the long bonnet, trying to summon up the spirit of the beautiful cars Jaguar have made in the past, like the E-Type, but it's very boxy and it's very big, and a lot of people don't like it.
I'm watching the presentation from Miami online today. They were obsessed about the horizontal lines. There's lots of horizontal lines around the car, and particularly at the back.
Yeah.
They seem quite big on that.
We should, and if you get a look at it, it is a very striking thing. And it's, you know, some people say it's bold and beautiful, others say it's radical, risky, and rubbish. And but remember, when you look at these pictures, this is a concept car. So this is a bit like going to a fashion show, seeing some rather outre kind of garments, and saying that a version of that is going to end up in the shops, but it's not going to look like that. It's the same with a concept car. It's a taste of the future. The real thing won't arrive till 2020, late 25, 2026. But this is their vision of what the future looks like.
I'm watching this whole process has reminded me of tech and when Apple launches a new iPhone.
Yeah.
So you have lots of teasing of it and a sort of like very abstract video to set up the kind of the values of the brand. And then you have a big presentation by the boss standing on a podium pointing at the new product.
Yeah, and they had their chief design officer up there saying, we know that Jaguar has no interest in being loved by everyone. And that's just as well, because frankly, the reaction has been very mixed. But you're right in the sense that there was a lot of theatre to this. The teaser ad campaign didn't have any cars in it at all. And they're basically trying to create as much distance between our vision of the old Jaguar and what's coming in the future as possible. And we got that overnight in Miami.
And Maisie, can you draw a line from that video that went viral for all the wrong reasons 2 weeks ago with all the out there costumes and what we saw today?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's certainly a through line between them. The kind of, obviously the colour scheme, the themes, the futuristic kind of oeuvre of it, I think makes sense. I guess, you know, one of the questions will be, I suppose, obviously it upset quite a lot of people, the original ad, but if we're going to call it an ad. But actually, you know, some people welcomed it, and some people have said that Jaguar is a business that really needs to kind of reinvent itself. So, I mean, it's certainly attempting that.
And so do you think that this has, on the whole, been a success then, this relaunch? I suppose we can't really know till they sell some cars, but I just think creatively and positioning-wise.
I come at this from two ways, because I think the reaction to it has been overblown. But from a comms perspective, I don't think it's clear enough. Like, for me, what makes great ads and great sort of commercial comms is having a clear strategy that links the idea and the execution back to the brand and what you're trying to say about the brand or the service to a customer to hopefully get them to either, you know, purchase or interact with whatever you're trying to promote. And I struggle with that in terms of what's the message we're supposed to take home about Jaguar other than it's changed and it's looking to the future. For me, that's probably not the two things that are kind of front of mind when people are looking to buy an expensive car necessarily.
Can I ask you a question, Maisie? It's Simon here. One thing they have achieved through this is that more people, tongues are wagging and eyeballs are on the Jaguar brand than has been the case for absolutely years. So if it's basically watch this space, this is a space that no one has been watching for some time. So love it or hate it, it's succeeded to some extent.
Yeah, I just think it's difficult to know whether this momentum will be kept through. So we're not going to actually see any real cars, and you know, for over a year now. So I think what happens in social media sometimes is things blow up so much that they feel huge. But actually a lot of people in the real world might not have even noticed they'd happened. So what are they going to do between now and then? Because brand comms is all about, you know, showing up in the same way as often as possible and being consistent. So they need to kind of, I don't know if it's possible for them to maintain this kind of momentum and being front of mind for everybody.
Well, I thought it was interesting watching Jerry McGovern, who's the chief creative officer, who was doing this very Steve Jobs-esque presentation in Miami today. And he started off, and actually quite a lot of his remarks were about the fact, oh, you're all looking at us now. We've got your attention. And with my old political journalist brain, I was thinking, is that what they intended all along? And he's laughing all the way to the bank? Or is it that thing of like, well, you can't avoid the elephant in the room. He had to acknowledge that maybe this had not gone quite to plan. And Simon, you've also been speaking to one of the bosses at the company. This is Rawdon Glover, who's the UK managing director.
Yeah, and the head of the Jaguar bit of JLR. And I put it to him that this is a massive risk. You know, you are basically airbrushing, if you like, decades worth of history and trying to create a gap between that and something new. And do you not run the risk of alienating all the fans you already had before you know whether you've got any new fans? And you could end up with the worst of both worlds. And the sense I get from it is that in some ways this is a no-lose gamble. It's a shot to nothing, because the sales of Jaguar as part of JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, is now less than 10% of total sales. It's dwindling niche business. So if this relaunch actually works, 5 years ago they sold 180,000. It's down to 60,000 last year. So if they succeed, they've created a brand new brand, brand new customers, breathed life into a dying brand. And if they fail, financially at least, for the entire group, it's not the end of the world.
Big a deal,
so it's kind of like, that's why I say it's a bit of a shot to nothing. Obviously, Jaguar enthusiasts won't see it that way, but the Jaguar enthusiasts like the old cars, not the new ones anyway, or the most recent ones. So they'll always be there. So as I say, in a way, it's a limited risk gamble.
Maisie, is that a kind of classic strategy from the playbook for a brand that is basically dwindling and so doesn't have a future unless you do something dramatic? And then actually, if the dramatic thing backfires, it doesn't matter because you were dwindling anyway.
Yeah, it's difficult though, because I almost like to think there's a third version of that, which is you do a dramatic thing that's got a clearer link to the brand and its heritage, if that makes sense. So, I totally see where they're coming from. But for me, like an example would be, say, Burberry, which has, had well-documented problems. And, some of the analysis of that suggests that what they tried to do is come too far away from their kind of British heritage and too far away. They tried to go too upmarket. And so they were searching this kind of, elusive, higher value customer. And actually, in the process, they became quite generic. And I think there is a danger there that by targeting this, not least because actually people with more money tend to be older people rather than younger people. So they're targeting this, high net worth, young, cool kind of urbanite, I guess, who also happens to live on the moon. But it's sort of, so according to the ad. So I think it's definitely high risk. I can certainly see why they say actually it's, carrying on is also a huge risk, and that maybe the two results could be comparable. But I wonder if there might have been, as I say, like a third way, which showed a clearer link to the heritage and maybe brought along some of these kind of real, fans of Jaguar, whilst also reinventing it and making it more modern.
Newscast from the BBC.